Oh, good morning, everyone. Good morning, and we should have Alex coming in just a moment. Hey, where are you? One moment. Aha, here we go. Hello, Alex.
Hello.
Good morning. Happy Wednesday. It's Wednesday
Happy
today.
Wednesday. Welcome to another episode of Marketing Live Jam, our weekly show to do what, Ori?
Well, we jam about marketing. We always we don't like the polished and post-edited version of marketing advice, but we know that in the boardroom, that's when real marketing advice happens. And so we thought, hey, let's create a show that is real and raw and where we can, jam together all things marketing.
Absolutely. So we're here to give real-time marketing advice in profitable marketing advice in real time. And today we've got some special people watching because I've got a bunch of kids who don't have schools to go to. I have a bunch of kids who don't have school to go to, so they're just at home watching their dad doing his
Awesome.
thing. So.
Awesome. Well, luckily my kids are too young to sit on a YouTube live stream, but I'm sure in a couple of years that will be the case.
Yep. Well, it'll be you'll be surprised how quickly they pick up technology. I wouldn't be surprised once they hit 18 months to 2 years. They know their way around how to they know their way around the iPad and how to bring up YouTube Kids and watch the shows and speak the languages that you never imagined.
I have already experienced that. Sometimes Adam just grabs a remote somewhere, switches a kids channel on, and jumps on the couch and watches it, and he's not even 2,
Yep, exactly.
So it's crazy.
Yep, it is a very interesting generation. This is probably going to be the first generation. Well, I mean, my eldest is 12, so she definitely grew up with tech. So this is the sort of first social experiment for us parents to deal with kids who grow up with technology. Yeah, like it's just second nature to them in terms of they know their way around the keyboard, they know their way around the iPad. And they know their way around how to create videos themselves, using features that I don't even know on my iPhone to create little clips and whatnot.
I remember, I think I was 13 and I got my first mobile phone. It wasn't even smart, it was just a black and white thing. And I was so excited. Oh no, I think it had like 365 colors, which is nothing. And then I think maybe 14, 15 or so, we had like unlimited internet at home, but it was still paid by the minute. So every minute that you were online, and it was so bloody slow, you were charged like 16 cents or something.
Yeah.
So every internet was so timed. And
do you know what dial-up internet is?
Dial-up internet?
Yeah, like you actually have to use your phone system to get into the internet, and there's like a dial-up procedure that you have to go through.
No, I never had to do that.
Yeah, so that was slow.
Yeah.
But I remember I was in wonder, I feel like I was in Wonderland, now I'm exposed to all this, did you ever use, well, I'm pretty sure you used MSN before, yeah?
Yeah, MSN. I was big on ICQ. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, ICQ, exactly. Yeah, I was going to ask that question because you're a few years younger than me. I'm not sure if you were exposed to ICQ.
MSN was more... the French people used MSN a lot. But in my kind of neck of woods, it was ICQ.
Yeah. So I started with ICQ when I was in Hong Kong. And then when I came to Australia, MSN was the thing. And everyone was on MSN.
321-610-212. That's my number if anybody cares.
Oh, really? Oh, actually, I don't remember my number now. I used to be able to remember it.
No, it's like, because that's like your mobile number, you share that with everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, ICQ is no more. MSN is probably dying out, and now it's the WhatsApps and the iMessage, etc.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
But it's essentially the same thing, isn't it? Like technology. I mean, that side of technology hasn't really changed. It's just the speed and the emoji and all the different group chats and stuff. But fundamentally, it was just text messaging over the internet.
Yeah, well, it's just real-time communication. Like,
Yeah.
it used to be paper letters and stuff, and you wait for a couple of months,
Yeah.
but now it's instant.
Yeah.
And yeah, crazy
Fair
world,
enough.
crazy world.
Okay. All right. Well, what's on the agenda today?
So we always talk about AI every week, but obviously, I assume that some of the people get sick of AI, and so we
Mm.
thought we'd talk about something a little bit different. A big
And
hot
more
topic,
timely, I believe.
more time.
More timely.
Yeah, more timely. Obviously, with the president election, etc., a lot has happened, and we might be a little bit slow to the boat, but I don't feel a lot of people have spoken about the tariffs in relation to marketing, how that
Yes,
affects
absolutely.
marketing. And so we thought, hey, let's jam a little bit on what the tariff means,
Yeah.
especially for businesses that want to, market,
Yeah.
promote, brand themselves.
Absolutely. So, how to survive in the era of crazy politics and tariffs through effective marketing. So, obviously, some of us track the news, and week to week is a new tariffs policy that good old Donald Trump is sort of instigating to the world. One day is 54%, and then it bumped up to 120
Yeah.
something, and then now he's excluding a lot, like all the electronic devices, which means that the I think 2 weeks ago, the Wall Street Journal or something was
Mm.
predicting the iPhone to be worth, or it will cost, the next iPhone is going to cost over $2,000 because of the manufacturing
Wow.
costs after the
Yeah.
tariffs. But now Donald Trump is excluding all of those products.
Mm.
And again, I wouldn't be surprised next week there'll be another new thing and another new thing and another
Yeah.
new thing, right? But I think what the sentiment is across the board right now is the big question is: are we heading into a global recession?
Mm.
And I was listening to the news this morning. I think the smart people in the world are giving it a 40% chance of US, the likelihood of US going into recession this year or next year.
Yeah.
So again, we don't, all of us don't have a crystal ball for the future. So
Mm.
this is not about predicting what's to come,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the general sentiment is, the world economically is going
Mm.
into a bad or bearish direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for us marketers, right, we want to be thinking, especially in our work in consulting bigger firms now. Some of those bigger firms, or even smaller companies, are starting to feel the effect.
Yeah.
Cost of living going up, and the cost of goods are going up, which means that their prices have to go up. And usually when that sort of stuff happens, one of the first things that people would cut or back off is marketing.
Yeah.
So with us marketers, right, as we live in this sort of economic environment and this sort of sentiment, our job is to try and help companies to figure out how do you market yourself out of a recession.
Yeah.
We did that once during COVID. Some of our clients actually went gangbusters during COVID in a downturn. And I wouldn't be surprised that if we deploy the right strategies
Mm.
and the right thinking, we will take advantage of that opportunity as well.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
of the things that I'll let you go a little bit, because this is one of the topics that I geek
Mm.
out on a lot, economics and
Yeah.
finance.
No, I know.
Um, uh, the famous investors in the world would usually use the phrase "don't waste a recession."
Mm.
So when there are times of economic downturns and whatnot, usually it is the golden opportunity to for someone to not only take calculated risk, but to really capitalize on the market, because a lot of things are going to be on sale.
Yeah.
So as marketers, we also want to help businesses to figure out how to navigate through a downturn and how to actually leverage through a
Mm.
downturn, so that we become the winners of the
Yeah. Yeah.
downturn.
Yeah. It reminds me, I heard this years ago that when everybody stops marketing, it's actually the best opportunity for you to do marketing, because
Absolutely.
then, not only is your exposure much better, but you don't have that much
Yes.
competition, trying to
Absolutely.
get to the same client.
Yep. Same goes to the stock market. Same goes to the
Yeah.
property market.
Yeah.
I think Warren Buffett says, and when everybody's greedy, you back off.
Mm.
But when everybody backs off, you get greedy,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that's the perfect analogy, right? If
Yeah.
everyone's pulling marketing dollars out,
Yeah.
no one's running ads anymore, or your competitions are just trying to scramble
Yeah.
and not choose not to double down on public facing activities, which
Mm.
means that the cost of ads are going to go down, and also your competitions are going to go down as well. So
Mm.
do not waste a recession. And today's conversation is about how to market ourselves out of a recession.
Which means cash flow is so important because you need to be, able to invest into marketing when everybody else can't.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you do see an opportunity, look, I don't advocate borrowing,
Yeah.
like excessively, but
Yeah.
if there's a clear opportunity that you can get into, you could look into various finance options as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's beyond the point. But my point is, let's think through in time in during tough times. How do we figure out marketing strategies that will get us out of a hole?
Yeah. Yeah. It just quickly, it reminds me about the conversation we have all the time with clients or prospects, is that there are so many ways to waste money on marketing.
Yeah.
And if we are heading into a recession, then obviously, you have to be more mindful that you don't waste money on marketing,
Mm.
maybe less experimentation.
Yep.
But even if we're not in a recession, like there are so many ways to spend money that promise you get more clients, etc.
Absolutely.
Um, but the longer I sit with prospects and clients in a room and talk through what is happening, the more less obvious the next strategic move becomes.
Mm. Yeah,
And that's why
absolutely.
it's so important to
Yeah,
spend the
because most
time.
of the time, and you and I know what it's like, right? We sit through a consulting session. A lot of the ideas are
Yeah,
actually just gut feel and
yeah,
personal opinion, right?
yeah,
Sometimes, sometimes a CEO would have a gut feel of, hey, we need to do X, Y, Z, and
yeah,
then he or she would be bringing sometimes hundreds of people along the ride,
yeah.
um, and to validate things that are pretty wasteful
Mm.
sometimes. Um,
Well, I think
but yeah,
often the easiest way to waste money on marketing is to think that you have a target audience that is actually not your ideal client.
yeah,
And then you market to them, and you obviously get some level of return,
mm,
but it's just completely different to if you targeted your real audience.
yeah, absolutely. Or think that you would have a target audience that actually doesn't exist,
Yeah.
right?
That people care about
Um,
your product, but nobody does.
yeah, exactly. You come up with a product or this hypothesis around, okay, these are the people that would buy my products,
Yeah.
but they actually don't exist, or the pond is not big enough.
Mm.
Um, like maybe you look at the market, there are only like five major players who would buy your products. Then you want to think through how do you go about reaching out to them in an offline or a using various offers or during or offline situations or
Yeah.
events or face to face, and building relationships and affiliate, instead of, oh, let's just spend $1 trillion on
Mm.
Google AdWords
Yeah.
and then cross our fingers and hope for the
Yeah.
best, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that I've come across more and more now is that every agency, every service provider has their own bias and their own objective. So an ad
Mm.
agency is very likely that they're going to recommend, hey, you should run ads,
Yeah,
because that's their bread and butter, and
absolutely.
that's their worldview, that you just need
Yeah,
to run ads. But
absolutely.
sometimes
So
Google ads and Meta ads are just not the right thing.
absolutely. Well, we were just recommending a local dentist to run, what is it? Local, what's the term that you?
Well, I wanted them to provide mints in coffee shops with
Mm,
like a business card that has a, not necessarily a clever tagline, but an obvious tagline of
yes, a
we're
clear
not just there
tagline.
to clean your teeth.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that would be much better. Like, one, the cost for that marketing
Mm.
campaign would be much less,
Yeah,
and it is extremely easy to execute. All you need to do is just to walk around your local cafes, pick
yeah,
50 of them,
yeah,
and just do, hey, here's the free gift for your customers, maybe
yeah.
a little bit of incentive for the
The
cafe as
cafe, yeah,
well. Yeah, and bim bam boom, right? You've got instant reach to a target audience that is much
yeah.
more defined.
Well, especially when you're localized, like there's so many creative ways on how you can, stand out. Because why, when you're localized, why invest so much into digital mediums
Mm,
when digital is so, boundaryless?
mm,
Focus on your geolocation, not just
yeah.
with digital, but there's so much stuff you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And don't just expect like I mean we're in 2025. Most of us have screen fatigue and most of us are actually trying to find ways to get away from the phone.
Yeah.
So just know that digital media is not the only way to promote
Yeah.
and market and advertise for your
Yeah.
business. We just need to get creative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what consultants do, and that's what they're there to do.
That's what people pay us the big bucks for, to tell them that you just need to run mint campaigns around your cafe.
Yeah. And then they say, "Oh, I could have come up with it." I said, "You could, but you never spent the time to think
Yeah,
through."
exactly. Yeah.
Hey, one thing that we both love and that we spend a lot of time on and money on is coffee. And
Yay! Look
oh,
at this.
there we go.
Shout out to our favorite coffee client, Boston Bean, out in South Australia. I'm drinking their lovely, delicious coffee right now.
Awesome, awesome. So I thought coffee is obviously affected by cost of living, etc.
Mm,
And so we thought it'd be really cool to find ways how coffee roasters or cafes or people in the coffee industry can
yeah.
actually capitalize on either a potential recession or the cost of living increases and
Mm,
supplier costs, etc.
yeah.
And also, one thing I notice all the time that when there is a cost increase of some sorts or businesses are increasing the prices, that it's not communicated well.
Mm,
And so, yes,
yeah.
that might be a commercially strategic move to increase your prices because that's
Mm,
the easiest way to, recoup your costs.
mm,
But communicating that in a good way is important. And then, apart from just increasing your prices, what else can you do
yeah.
to market yourself out of the recession?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, so as a bit of context, right? I read some news articles the other day. I don't know how true it is, but and I understand that most of these headlines are just trying to grab attention. But apparently, the cost of coffee. So right now I live in Melbourne. Ori lives in Sydney. A standard cup of latte in a normal cafe would cost somewhere between 450 to sometimes 550 these days.
Yep.
And that number is projected to go up to all the way up to about $7 in about 6 months' time. So by the end of this year, all of us are paying $7 for a cheeky latte in a local cafe. And if you want some fancy milk and different variations and
Yep.
all that sort of stuff, it can go all the way up to, I don't know, $8, $8.50 or something, right? So that is a ridiculous
That's
uh,
$50 a week.
yeah, exactly. And that is a ridiculous way of thinking about how I'm going to consume coffee going forward. I don't know how true that number is, but
Yep.
I generally speaking, all of us are sensing increase in prices,
Yep.
across the board, just for day to day living,
Mm.
right? But in light of our conversation today, the topic is how to market ourselves out of the recession, right? And we're using the coffee industry as an example, assuming that the cost of coffee is going up. Look, we've
Yep.
got some industry insights for our clients, and actually, one of our staff is a bit of a coffee geek as well, so he understands the market. The cost of coffee,
Mhm.
harvesting and producing coffee has definitely gone up, right? For so many reasons.
Yep.
Um, uh, so it is a fact. So which means that eventually the actual price of coffee or a cost of a consumer coffee will
Yep.
eventually go up because someone is going to someone have to pay the price,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
usually it's the consumer. So yeah, so this is the context of our exercise today. So assuming the coffee industry is on a decline, and us marketers, how are we thinking through using marketing to fight back that decline and to sustain business success?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what are some of the ways that we would start with?
Well, one obvious thing is, doing some research, spending some time to actually finding out what our bias is, and maybe there is a different opinion.
Mm,
Um, I also think that when um, the no, just yeah, I would start with research.
Yep. Okay. And what would be since you okay? So usually with research, well,
Yeah,
what do we mean by research,
yeah,
right? We go on Google, we look at competitors, we look at what the market's doing, and then so on and so forth. Or obviously deep research in the AI race right now. Every
mm,
platform is launching a version of deep research,
yeah, yeah.
and apparently, Ori, you have sort of cracked the code in terms of how to leverage deep
Yeah.
research for our advantage.
Well, I've prepared a prompt that we could try. Um, the one thing I had a thought before that I thought is helpful to start with, but we can obviously utilize tools to provide us some research or some
Mm,
context to think through. Something we have to be mindful of is that even any AI tool can be biased. I think just getting AI to help us collect sources and kind of collect information can be really helpful just to
mm.
help us think. So my suggestion would be, I have found Google Gemini actually really helpful.
Okay,
Also,
so you're using Google Gemini today, not
yeah,
GPT or DeepSeek. Okay,
yes.
what's the what's the thought process behind choosing Gemini?
Um, One is, Google has just released a new developer, or just had the developer conference, and so they released a bunch of new things.
Hmm.
We also have the enterprise plan, which means we get access to the best models available.
Hmm.
Um, and I found that it's much easier to export and use within our Google Workspace ecosystem. So
Yeah.
it's more of a convenience thing.
Mm.
And also, I think ChatGPT limits you to a certain amount of research sessions, whereas I haven't seen any limitations with Gemini yet. So
Okay, interesting.
that's where I like to experiment with
Okay,
that.
all right. Well, why don't you show us your screen in terms of what prompts are you using? Again, we are doing some deep research in the coffee industry to try and fight back the increased costs and also maybe a bit of a consumer sentiment in terms of how expensive coffee is going to be,
Yeah,
which means that they may or may not want to spend their time in local cafes anymore.
yeah, yeah. So, now I remember what I wanted to say is that I spoke about you need to know your target audience at the
Hmm.
beginning. And so obviously there is the everyday coffee consumer, and especially in Australia, a lot of people consume coffee every day.
Hmm.
But there are also your coffee snobs. There are those, they want specialty coffee, they want single origin, they want the cold drip and whatever is out there.
Hmm.
And so I think it's understanding, is the pond big enough to specialize in a certain coffee and be able to demand 8, 9, $10?
Yeah.
Um, because with all the fair trade and um, the the value in having coffee that is done the right way.
Mm,
Whereas the average consumer might not care too much about fair trade, and they
true.
just want the morning kick and then go to work.
Yeah.
Whereas some people, they want to sit down, enjoy, they want to cherish
Yeah.
every sip and be
Yeah.
proud about their coffee.
Yeah. So look, in coffee, again, this is my again, this is why it's so important to verify your ideas
Yeah,
in an effective way, because we can go and do research all day and spend 3 months and not come up with a conclusion, right? But also we don't want to make just rushed decision based
mm,
on just gut feel, right? So
yeah,
my gut feel tells me there are possibly two trends in coffee going forward. The number one trend is the coffee consumption is going to be more of a not luxurious, but more of a high ticket um, item now.
yeah,
So think of things like fine dining, think of things like even when we think outside of food and beverage, we think about the vinyl experience. So
mm,
I'm a music fan,
yeah,
so I've got friends who collect vinyl, right? So it's not a necessity, but it's
yeah,
definitely a sort of a boutique experience,
yeah,
right? Or even some people say that the movie industry or the cinema industry
mm,
is going down that trend as well. It's
yeah,
less about just going into a movie theater, stare at a big screen for 3 hours to watch a movie, because you can
yeah,
basically do that at home these days. But it is about that gold class experience. It's
mm,
about this concierge experience, superb customer service, and
Yeah.
then you can demand top dollars for it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my gut feel is maybe coffee is trending more towards the high end consumption.
Mm.
That's my first gut feel. And then
Yeah.
the other gut feel would be the home brew culture, home brewing
Mm.
culture is going to have an uplift. A little bit like the whole COVID thing, right? So
Mm.
when COVID, we were all stuck at home, the digital industry boomed because demand supply, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
now, if the local cafe is not, we can't justify spending top dollars in a local cafe.
Mm.
There may be a what do you call it, a resurgent or an emerging trend
Mm.
for home brewing as well, right? So
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
may change some coffee suppliers sell or behave or how they
Mm.
do business. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm picturing like a like a boutique cafe, like obviously the architecture and the fit out and stuff
Yeah.
needs to match.
Yeah.
But it's almost more like a restaurant experience where you actually
Mhm.
just have a coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got plenty of those outfits in Melbourne. There are
Yeah,
some in Sydney as well, not
yeah,
as
yeah,
fancy because
yeah,
they don't meet Melbourne standards.
yeah,
But yeah, we definitely have a few of those like specialty filter coffee, and then they could like the highest end of a filter coffee in that particular shop is like $35 for an
yeah.
Indonesian specialty,
Wow,
whatever thing. I never
wow.
paid that sort of money, but this is the
Yeah.
kind of money that we demand. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's already heading that way, so that's way more than seven. So, you know,
Mm.
if you can't sell something, just sell it as a specialty, and you might get lucky.
Yeah.
Cool. So let me just quickly walk you through the prompt for that particular case. I'm assuming we are trying to help a coffee roaster, and that they are doing both. They're providing coffee in-house as part of the roaster setup, but then also, they're selling coffee beans.
Mm.
So I'm a coffee roaster in Australia, providing premium coffee beans to cafes and individuals. Yeah, so that's kind of the sales channel. I also have a local cafe in my facility where I sell barista-made coffee. I'm concerned about the increase in cost of coffee beans and the market behavior. Yeah, will there be a market shift in consumer behavior?
Mhm,
If coffee
mhm,
demands even more money from consumers, I need some strategic insights. Yeah,
mm,
so what can Google or Gemini come up with to help me make a strategic decision based
mm,
on hopefully factual data rather than just a gut feel as a coffee owner?
mm,
And then a bunch of lists that I particularly want research on: coffee consumer behavior, profitable market opportunities, who my ideal client is, because I always want to try to break my bias. Even, we always think we're right, but hopefully we're all happy to be wrong.
mm,
And then, list the demographics, pain points, goals, etc., for them to pay, big bucks for quality coffee.
mm,
And then something that I like to include is just a little bit more details. We talk a lot about story branding and really honing down on the problems. So I want to know what people's problems are, but what are the words they use to complain about the situation that they're in. Yeah. Look at real review sites, online forums, and discussion groups. My wife is very big on Reddit at the moment. She looks at all the Reddit channels about early motherhood and um,
yeah.
all that stuff.
It's a
And it's
vortex of information.
but she said it's you feel really heard. And so for me as a marketer, I thought this is such a great place to find what
Yeah.
people are really thinking,
Yeah.
because it's anonymous in nature. People
Mm.
tend to be really, really direct and really
Yeah,
honest.
exactly. Yep.
And
The
so that,
keyboard heroes.
yeah, that can
Yeah.
can help marketers to
Yeah. Yeah.
nail their audience. And then make sure all your research is based on actual findings,
Yeah.
websites, etc. Um, cool. So this typically takes a little bit of time. So we'd see how quickly you know Gemini comes up with something.
Mm.
ChatGPT tends to be a little bit slower. So yeah, we'll
Yeah.
we'll see what
Well,
I
while
come up
that's
with.
generating, I have another thought around the coffee industry. Like now, again, a lot of this is okay. Well, now we've got some results, but let me just so if we were to talk, okay, so a lot of what we usually help clients with is to come up with what we would call irresistible offers, and the purpose for an irresistible offer is to get someone's foot in the door. Okay,
Mm,
you're not looking to try and make a killing doing that. Um, Sometimes you would want to lose money or break even as an acquisition cost to get
Yeah.
people through the door, right? So I will be thinking, if people get to a point, and again, this is personal opinion, gut feel, it needs to be verified, right? But I would be thinking, if people are starting to be resistant of, walking into a local cafe and pay
Mm.
$6 or $7 for a latte, and that's their pain point, and that's what stops them from coming.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a cafe with a lot of food and toasty and all that stuff, and where you make your real money out of food
Yeah.
instead of coffee. You could either do a free coffee, like you could either do a campaign for either free coffee or discounted coffee, like $2 specialty latte or something, right?
Mm.
Like it has to be like, because, and we got to break that sentiment of cheap. If you pay $2 is cheap coffee, right?
Yeah.
So you still want to deliver excellent coffee at a lower price, get the food in the door, and then you start selling them food, right?
Mm.
Maybe you give them a loyalty card instead of buy 10 coffees and receive one. Maybe
Yeah.
you go, here's a loyalty card for you, your next 10 coffees are going to
Mm.
be $2, right?
Yeah.
They keep coming back. Hopefully, they'll buy food, and then you go from there, right?
Mm.
So that would be, one of the small tweaks that you could
Yeah.
start making when that becomes a really painful problem.
Yeah. Well, one really interesting thing about the Australian industry in particular, I think the average coffee consumer actually values the barista.
Mm,
Of they have a somewhat of a relationship with the barista. They value
yep,
the
yep,
that it's handmade, that it's
yep,
prepared, etc.
yep,
When
yep.
I was in Germany last year, we obviously had a bunch of coffee. You go into a coffee shop and they just press a button, and nobody seems to care.
Yeah.
And so that is culturally something worth
Mm,
considering. And the reason that coffee is so expensive is because there's human labor involved.
yep. Absolutely. Yep. True. Yeah. So, and the other side of the coin is think about how to jazz up your customer experience.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely. If the barista remembers my name and my coffee order, I want to come back because that's more of a home base for
Yeah,
me than just the coffee.
yeah,
I can certainly point to a local cafe just around my area. They actually serve terrible coffee,
mm,
um, but two two things. I've been going. I go less now because the coffee is just like I can't tolerate that coffee anymore. But sometimes I still go because of two things. Number one, they open at 5 a.m. in the morning, so I'm an
mm,
early bird, so I can go 5 a.m. do some reading and all that stuff and
yeah,
tolerate the back. Or sometimes I would get a tea, right?
yeah,
And secondly, the atmosphere is super super homey. They shake your hands every time. They call
mm,
you by name. They ask how's your family. Just a
yeah, yeah,
really homey experience.
mm,
And again, in that sort of cafe vibe with excellent customer service and excellent sort of
yeah,
customer experience, even though the coffee is subpar, I
mm,
still like, during a recession, I don't see them going out of business,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because they've got such a loyal fan base
mm,
locally. They like every time I go, it's the same people out of a local gym. That's their
yeah,
go-to, and there's
yeah,
same group of bikies who would go there and get their
mm,
coffee fix, right? Even though there are another three fancy cafes just on that strip of shop,
mm.
that one is still always buzzing and busy, and serving terrible coffee.
Wow. Well, there are some big marketing lessons in there. Like customer journey is just so incredible, and the
Yeah,
money really is made on the back end. Yeah, it's getting the client is one small piece of the puzzle,
yeah,
but really the money is made in the repeat purchases and the customer loyalty and all that stuff.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
looks like Gemini has given us some result. Why don't you take us through what the findings are?
yeah. So it's about 50% through, and we can already see it's researching 187 websites.
Hmm.
Just think about it. If you were to go through, almost 200 websites by yourself, you would burn so many brain calories.
It's going to
Uh,
probably take you about 6 months.
yeah, and you might realize you know s- have spent 6 months worth of money on something that doesn't work.
Hmm.
And so that's why it's a huge help to get some information to help you think through.
Hmm.
And with these research models, I think they're less biased and they try to be factual on particular websites that are out there.
Hmm.
So it's showing us what it's thinking through. It's trying to understand the market, consumer insights, and then just going through a bunch of websites to kind of get information in that
Hmm.
field. Then it's looking at market growth trends, rising bean cost impact. specialty coffee focus. Yeah, we said, hey, if the consumer behavior is we want them to spend a lot of money on coffee, then it might be a specialty coffee focus, like a general mixed beans might not be,
Mm,
what they're after. And then consumer voices. Yeah, what are people actually saying? What are they complaining
mm,
about? What words do they use to describe their experience?
mm.
So it's going through that and looking through more sites. And then, yeah, consumer language concerns, what coffee lovers want, focusing on the premium customer. So a lot of thought process that is going behind it, which it will all spit into a big report. And then we'll see
Yeah.
if we can extract some interesting insights.
Now, I just have an idea, Ori.
Yeah,
I was thinking, what would be really interesting is I actually have a friend who has a lot of industry insight in the coffee industry. He runs
yeah,
basically a coffee making school around
yeah,
town,
yeah,
and he would. I think what would be really interesting is if we just gather this information, do a little bit of homework to it, and then next week we'll bring Charles on.
yeah,
I'll get in touch with him.
yeah,
Next week we'll bring Charles on to just geek out on the coffee industry.
mm,
We
yeah,
want to validate whether or not he's smelling a decline in the
yeah,
industry,
yeah,
and then look at this report, sort of validate some of our findings, and
mm,
also on top of our personal opinions. And I
yeah,
think it would be a really cool marketing live jam, so that
okay,
we actually get real time marketing insights backed by data
yeah.
and see what comes out of it. What kind of music can we make out of it?
Yeah, well, why don't we not tell him that we've done research, and then
Okay.
halfway through we can say, "Hey, love all your thoughts and your perspective. Here is
Yeah.
some research that we've made,
Yeah.
and it either matches or it doesn't match."
Yeah. Well, we can
So,
possibly do that.
yeah,
Okay. All right. Well, let's do that because we are running out of time.
yeah,
But I just thought that while this information is pretty dry to go through now, I
yeah,
think if we bring I'll get in touch with Charles and then
mhm,
see if he would come on next week or the week after,
yeah,
because next week is a bit of a short week due to Easter and Anzac Day and all that sort of stuff. So we'll
yeah,
manage that.
yeah.
But yeah, I think it will be a really really fruitful conversation.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and then we'll
Yeah.
we'll have some time to go through the report and not bore you
Yeah.
while we do
Awesome.
a lot of admin work.
Yes.
But one thing I'd love to quickly touch base on is, in general, when the strategic decision or the business decision is to increase your costs, increase your prices to the
Mm,
consumer.
mm.
What are some great ways that you can actually communicate that?
Yeah,
Because
that's a good point, right?
the
Yes.
typical
Go
way
on.
is, "Oh, our cost has increased. We're so sorry, and we've tried to keep it the same cost as the same price as long as possible,
Mm,
but now we are forced to increase our prices,"
mm.
which is a bit of a. It just sounds like, "Oh, poor
Yeah.
you," victim mindset. And while that's true,
Uh-huh.
it's like this is not what the consumer wants to hear.
Yeah.
So what are some ways where, like, the customer can be like, "Man, absolutely, of course. Like,
Mm,
I'm all for it."
yeah. You are putting me on a bit of a spot here, because I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
I had been thinking about this. I haven't really thought about this for a
yeah,
long time because I think I've just gotten used to people saying that, hey,
mm,
bad luck, we're
yeah,
putting up our prices,
yeah,
take it or leave it, right? So I
yeah.
totally agree with you.
Mm.
But since you brought this question, I would assume you would have some answers prepared already. So I'll be keen to hear yours.
I haven't actually. Something I thought about today. Um, but one thing that crossed my mind, and it's probably going to push a lot of people off, is why not be honest? Like, just say we want to make more money, and we're just going to increase our prices.
Yeah.
But this could
Look,
obviously, backfire.
I think you look. I think a lot of people are trying to encourage people to use cash to
Yeah,
avoid the transaction costs through the bank. I'm a
mm,
huge fan of cash.
yeah,
I don't love the idea of an entire society just working off digital currency because that's just the perfect way for the government to control you. Anyway, that's a topic for another day.
yeah,
Um, so look, I think no matter how you put it, either you be really apologetic or really encouraging, or sometimes people will be like, "Hey, we're fighting this fight together.
mm,
We're in this together and whatnot." Like most of those messaging come as cheesy.
yeah,
Um, So I think it is about offering some tangible solutions to actually help people save costs, right?
Mm,
So, for example, okay, talking about unreasonable hospitality, right? If you
mm,
go to a grocery store or go to a cafe and all that sort of stuff, right? You
yeah.
probably want to strategically uh, downsell the higher price items,
Hmm.
and you want to upsell the cheaper item as a preferred package, right? So you go, hey, due to cost of living or due to the cost of goods, these products are going to be priced 20% higher.
Yeah.
However, these products stay the same,
Mm,
it's the same price or cheaper, right?
yeah.
So why don't you go and choose these products to save yourself a few bucks?
Yeah.
But if you're
Mm,
smart about how you run your business and inventory and whatnot, you may end up making more margins on the cheaper products, or you get more volume out of the
mm.
cheaper products, so that you end up making a little bit more money. Yeah. So it is the A/B
Yeah.
thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's
yeah,
interesting
yeah.
because you could reduce your high margin products and increase your low margin products, or the
Mhm.
products that are not selling a lot. You
Yeah,
just reduce them a lot
yeah.
to
So
lead the
generally
conversation.
speaking, you're using the fact of prices are going up
Yeah.
to push for the products that you want to sell. Do you want to
Yeah.
move
Yeah.
quicker?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so you're just dressing it up in a different way.
And anyone that holds inventory knows that idle inventory is a nightmare. So if you can use that as a way to move inventory, that can be a big bonus.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Well,
Mm.
we'll keep Gemini cooking on the background.
Yeah.
I will go and make some phone calls to hopefully bring my friend Charles on board in our next episode, and see what comes out of it.
Cool. Well, this is a great reminder for our upcoming workshop in 2 weeks. So we are running out of space. We are getting ready to deliver the best workshop we've ever done in 2 weeks' time
Absolutely.
on the
Yeah.
1st and 2nd of May in Melbourne, face to face for 2 days. And if you are interested and want to be part of the group, go to csharp.au/workshop. And yeah, we'd love to help you think through your marketing decisions, your messaging, your sales funnel, your content marketing. It's going to be messy because marketing is never a straight line, but it's going to be
Absolutely.
fruitful. And you're going to walk out with a marketing plan that you can actually implement and grow
Absolutely.
your business,
A
even in a
clear
recession.
marketing plan, because anyone can give you a marketing plan,
Yeah,
but you're going to walk out with a crystal clear marketing plan, knowing your next steps and knowing that that is actually going to move your needle. It will be less tactical, more strategic, and that's what we're here to deliver.
yeah. Tactics are easy. When the strategy is set, tactics is just pressing buttons and moving pixels. So
Mm,
that's you shouldn't pay people big bucks for tactics because anyone can learn that. So that's why we run face-to-face workshops so that you can become a strategic brain to make the best decisions.
awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, well, can't wait to catch up again. Look out on the emails and the socials on our next marketing live jam. It may or may not be next week, depending on how our weeks go. But yeah, I we look forward to our next episode so that we can make music out of a declining coffee industry.
Awesome. Love it. Well, I'm going to make myself a coffee now and then we'll see you hopefully next week.
Okay, see ya.
See you then.